Daddy.
Hi.
Guess who's still sick?
All month long.
I'm on amoxicillin now. Yay. Guess who's doing most of the work tonight? I owe him a lot.
Hi again. Oh, it's been a month.
It has. I'm not liking it so far. Can I have my tissues too?
You're going to blow your nose on the air?
No, I'm going to try not to drip on air. Just saying.
Okay. Just as long as we're on the same page.
I just took my nasal meds. Now they're a little drippy.
You're a little drippy.
I'm sorry.
You're leaking?
I'm leaking.
Stop.
And not from the usual spot.
Stop leaking. No leaking.
Chris has had it with me.
I still love you.
I'm glad you do.
Hi, Whitney. You got
Whitney.
chat. You have chat now.
Okay, I'll go to work.
Beth will be handling the chat again this week. So, but yes. And we have a Una here just off screen. You gonna come over and say hi? Gonna come over and say hi? Anyways, it has been a relatively uneventful last couple of weeks, which is probably for the best because, again,
I'm still
sick.
plagued.
But yeah, we had a John Marshall house tour this past Saturday. So if you came on out and joined us for that, thank you very much. It was, had a good tour for everybody out there again. And of course, we got all of our other tours going. We had a Churchill tour earlier this evening. Our guide Carly's out there, probably wrapping that up right about now. And things are starting to warm up. It's actually a beautiful night out.
It is. It's going to be beautiful this entire week.
Yeah, so if you have been waiting for things to warm up a little bit to come on out and join us on a tour, now's the time to do it. But anyways, yeah, so what do we got coming up? Oh, yeah, so next month, we're on the verge of March.
Beverly says hi. Beverly was on our John Marshall tour.
Yes. Yep. So good to see you, Beverly. Thank you. Glad you could come on out and see us there. No, ma'am, do not even think about that.
You gave her a new position for ups. I'm just saying.
Okay, anyways. But, so...
Oh, hello.
What?
I have a Vincent.
Oh.
He's sneaking in.
Yeah. So we're right on the verge of March. March is going to be a busy month for us.
It is. Irish Festival. Let's start with that one.
Yep.
2 days before St. Patrick's Day, we will be up here, right outside our house, at the Churchill Irish Festival with our booth. Ma'am.
There is nothing for you up there.
But it's an area I can get to.
You can't get up there because there's no room for you up there.
Not a bit.
Don't.
She's already got it.
I know. Head. Just stop. Okay. So yeah, we got that going on, and then a couple of weeks after that, the last weekend of March, we'll have GalaxyCon. We will have a vendor booth there all 4 days, and we are shaping up to have 3 panels there, details pending. Yeah. So we will keep you posted on that as well, but looking forward to...
and we'll have a booth.
Yes. I said, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. I was typing.
But, so looking forward to having a nice spooky March as things start to warm up. Of course, St. Patrick's Day is one of our favorite occasions as well, so looking forward to that too. But yeah, so lots of opportunities in the very near future for you to come on out and see us. And as for tonight, well, you have tuned in for what is going to be another one of our states. We're checking another state off the list. This time, we're heading back out west. We are going to go to Wyoming. So the absolute least populous state in the country. But that said, doesn't mean that the state is lacking in its haunted history. It's got quite a extensive history going back through the years. Certainly native tribes called that region home for many millennia. And then eventually come the 1800s, you do have like fur trappers and cattle drivers. And then, of course, the trail immigrants start coming through as well, most notable of which is, of course, like the Oregon Trail. So we got that going on. And then, then there's, of course, right through to the modern day, you got the people that call Wyoming home today. And all of these generations have left their mark on this vast stretch of the American West, and there's with many of their spirits lingering on long after their final breaths. So we are going to go ahead. We're going to start in the City of Rawlins. Now, Rawlins is right along I-80, so if you decide to go ahead and make a cross-country trip along I-80, you're going to go right through Rawlins. And it's in south central Wyoming. And this is a community less than 10,000 people, which is, pretty much kind of par for the course for Wyoming. I think they only have like 600,000 people living there. So a lot of these communities are on the smaller side. And it's mostly rooted in, government services. It's the seat of Carbon County, but it was also once the heart of the state prison system, evidence of which still looms large at the heart of Rawlins. With imposing castle-like granite walls, the former Wyoming State Penitentiary stands as a fortress in the middle of town. If it makes you think of Alcatraz, it should. It was designed by the same architects who were responsible for The Rock in San Francisco Bay. Construction here started in 1888, but it wouldn't be finished and ready for service until 1901. Simply put, they busted their budget, and it took them a while to get the remaining funds together. Once open, it became home to the roughest lot of inmates and others convicted of lesser crimes who were transferred from the prison in Laramie. Almost right away, the prison became overcrowded as the criminal justice system was cranked up in an effort to wipe out the criminal element across the state. Wyoming was working overtime in an effort to present themselves as a civilized state, and they didn't have time to deal with any criminal nonsense. In 1904, an additional 34 cells were built onto the west end of the cell house to try and relieve this overcrowding. The concept of reform at this time was to break the spirits of hardened criminals and force conformity, with the hope that the criminal would bend to the shape of society's rules. As such, the Wyoming State Penitentiary was equipped with 104 dark, cramped cells with no electricity or running water and an inadequate heating system. Hot water wasn't available in cells until 1978. In 1906, a dungeon house was finished to house the most difficult and violent inmates, with the primary goal being to instill discipline and make the prison a generally more pleasant place. At least more pleasant for the guards. While this step of moving the most disturbed men out of the general prison population was a welcome improvement, much more was needed in keeping control of the inmates.
That's it, really?
He wanted to be center stage.
Yeah, he does.
The Wyoming State Penitentiary had woeful security to adequately handle the kind of folks who made up their growing prison population. It was considered too rough for women, and the last woman inmate was transferred out in 1909. Women were not segregated from the general male population at first, and it became abundantly clear that this was a very bad idea. It took a while to establish the maximum security measures needed to keep its inmates secure. Foiling escapes and stopping murders within the facility was a challenge. Weapons would sometimes be smuggled into the prison, and in 1907, guard Ed Samuelson was shot and killed by an inmate during an escape attempt. Oh, and this inmate also managed to get their hands on some dynamite as well. Inadequate security indeed.
I have questions.
Yeah. So, handgun and dynamite, not...
Serious questions.
Yes. So, escape attempts started almost as soon as the facility opened, with some being more successful than others. In 1912, 30 prisoners escaped through the wooden stockade and barbed wire on 2 consecutive days, some of whom went on to kill a Rawlins resident, Charles Stressner. Finally, in 1915, the concrete walls and towers were at last finished, which slowed, if not stopped, escape attempts. The inmates throughout the years were kept employed making broomsticks, shirts, and did their part for the World War II effort by making the highest quality woolen blankets for the military. After the war, inmates made license plates as well. Throughout the following years up to 1966, new cell blocks and other buildings and additions were eventually added when a need was really evident. And yes, executions did take place at the prison, starting in 1912 when the death house was finished. From 1912 to 1933, inmates in the death house were hung by the Julian gallows. They were condemned prisoners who were actually forced to kill themselves. They would step on a trap door and a stream of water was started, which eventually opened the trap door, causing the condemned to drop through the trap door. Unfortunately, this gallows design didn't drop the condemned man far enough to break his neck, and they died a slow death through strangulation. 9 men were hung in this fashion. In 1936, a hydrocyanic acid gas chamber was installed and was used up until 1965. The prison was closed in 1981 after 80 years of service. Since then, it was turned into the Wyoming Frontier Prison Museum, which it still serves as to this day. It didn't take long for the new museum to earn a reputation as one of Wyoming's most haunted locations. Between its staff and the 15,000 people that they host every year, the Wyoming Frontier Prison Museum has plenty of opportunities for the living to cross paths with the resident spirits. The museum director, Tina Hill, says, "We've been told by numerous paranormal investigators that our prison has so much activity that it's difficult to pull up any one spirit out of the pack. Every paranormal investigation that we hold here comes up with some evidence, so I just tell everyone that we are officially haunted." Hill goes on to add, "Over the years, we've had numerous anecdotal stories of guests and staff being touched on the shoulders or back, hair being tugged, hearing footsteps, whistling, voices, hearing your name being called, cell doors opening and closing, windows rattling, benches being moved, small items being misplaced and then later found. That said, as nasty a lot as the one-time prisoners were, some of them do stand apart as particularly notorious and for their reported hauntings. Andrew Pixley was cold-blooded murderer responsible for the gruesome slayings of some children whose father was a circuit court judge. He was found guilty and sentenced to die in the gas chamber, and when his execution came, he took the longest to die of any inmate ever recorded by the gas chamber. Most perished in under 2 minutes, but Pixley lasted nearly 7 minutes, and he was laughing the entire time. Not only did he physically hang on as long as he could, but spiritually he's been still hanging in. Candle lights placed beside Pixley's cell during ghost tours of the prison have been known to flicker intensely, emit a glowing light, go out completely, and then suddenly relight themselves. A black cat has also been known to infiltrate the prison and has been spotted coming and going from Pixley's cell and the execution chamber. Within the chamber, people have claimed to hear ghostly laughing during paranormal investigations, as well as the crying of young females. This is believed to somehow be the weeping of Pixley's victims. Next, we have an apparition that doesn't involve a singular spirit, rather a half a dozen. A frequent visitor of the prison during its early years was a local woman who brought fresh-baked pies and a homespun spiritual message to the inmates. One prisoner named Frank Wigfall in particular took a keen liking to this woman known as the Pie Lady, and upon his release from prison tracked her to her home to kill her. Finding himself back in prison again, Wigfall was instantly hated by all of the inmates who enjoyed the pies and cheered the Pie Lady spread. Wigfall was hung with a rope by a small group of prisoners over the side of an upper walkway as justice for the Pie Lady. Since then, prisoners, prison guards, and paranormal investigators have witnessed a scene where a half a dozen spirits quickly reenact their execution of Wigfall. Sightings over the years have taken many forms. Tour guides have frequently heard footsteps in and around the gas chamber area of the prison, as well as disembodied voices calling out over the various cell blocks long after the last tourist has left for the day. Electronic voice phenomena have also been captured, with messages ranging from "help me" to "give me a cigarette." Every corner of the prison seems to be susceptible to paranormal activity. One of the most bizarre and chilling places is the main prison shower room. Voices and conversation can clearly be heard here, but upon investigating who it might be, the space is found empty and quiet. Equally disturbing is the fact that wet footsteps have been spotted on the floor tiling despite no water being run in the shower room at all. So whether you're interested in the history of incarceration in Wyoming, or if you have a fondness for spirits, or both, the Wyoming Frontier Prison Museum is a fascinating location to add to your places to visit.
Donnie likes my pants. I just need a shirt to go with them. Sorry, Una's apparently saying I'm not allowed to leave again. I do apologize, but you don't want to hear me doing that.
No, you don't. Not at all.
Chris has been dealing with it for 3 days now. He's not happy.
We don't need to record it for posterity.
No, we don't.
So, we're going to move along from Rawlins to Cheyenne, the capital and the most populous city in Wyoming. It's home to about 1 in 9 Wyomingites, and apparently that is the correct way to say it. It's Wyomingites. Cheyenne is tucked into the southeast corner of the state, just north of the border with Colorado. Between the state government, the museums, and the various activities that the city has to offer, there is plenty of room for hauntings in this magic city of the plains. That is their nickname, by the way. They like to call themselves the magic city of the plains. So, Cheyenne, Wyoming.
I mean, my mom's been there several times and she loved it. So.
It seems very charming from what I looked up.
Yeah,
seems like
she used to go to a rodeo there every single year when she lived in Colorado.
Longmont.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's not that far from Longmont.
no, it's not, which is why she would always go there.
Yeah. So, one of the most well-known sites in Cheyenne is St. Mark's Episcopal Church at 1908 Central Avenue.
Okay, now I gotta say, as the daughter of a minister, I found this one highly, highly interesting.
Do you want to try and read
No,
it?
I don't.
Okay.
I'll ruin it.
When the church opened in 1888, the bell tower was still not complete, and it had been capped off. It remained that way until it was completed in 1924. 2 Swedish workmen were hired to complete the tower. These men were talented stonemasons, but spoke very little English. However, when it reached the height of 40 feet, both workmen disappeared. Years later, one of the missing workmen revealed himself on his deathbed, and he confessed the reason for his disappearance. The workman stated that he and his friend were working on the bell tower when his friend lost his footing and fell off the tower into the basement, dying instantly. This man was so afraid that he entombed his friend in the new bell tower and ran away the next day. This would help explain the experiences of those who came to the bell tower after the Swedes. New craftsmen that were engaged to complete the tower reported hearing strange noises, tapping, the sound of hammers, and whispering which seemed to be coming from the walls of the tower. When the work was finished, a new study for the rector, Father Rafter, had also been built. You accessed it through the basement of the tower, and then up dozens of steps of the spiral staircase. Father Rafter quickly moved in, but almost as quickly moved out. You see, he was hearing the same whispers, knocks, and tapping on the walls, but then he heard the voice from within the stone wall. Since then, the tower was declared off limits. When people are shown the tower, it is chilly, drafty, dusty, and musty smelling. A few have been offered the opportunity to spend the night in the old study, but few have agreed to it. Today, there are no tours of the bell tower, as they believe it should be a space left for the ghosts. Legend has it that the pipe organ that was once located in the tower can still be heard years after its removal, and some have reported the church bells ringing on their own, adding to the mystery of this holy location. We're not done with Cheyenne. We actually have a few stops here.
Cheyenne has a lot of ghosts.
Yeah. So next stop is just a few blocks away down Central Avenue, where we have the historic Plains Hotel. This handsome 5-story, beautifully restored hotel takes up almost a city block. By 1910, Cheyenne was a thriving town because of the discovery of oil and the booming cattle business. The winters were relatively mild, and the grass lasted all year, which encouraged cattle ranchers to settle here. A high-class hotel was needed for oil barons, rich cattle ranchers, visiting Army officers, and visitors heading to Yellowstone and the Grand Tetons. Architect William Dubois designed and built the hotel at a cost of $250,000. The modern and elegant Plains Hotel opened on March 9, 1911, with a grand formal ball. All of the bells and whistles were available, inspiring rave reviews. One newspaper commented that the Plains Hotel impressed one as a palace. Throughout its long history, the owners have done their best to keep up this grand old lady looking her best. In the 1930s, the hotel received a new look, using polished native woods and native-inspired themes for bar furniture and iron chandeliers. In 2002, the Plains Hotel had another renovation in the proud tradition of this hotel. Beautiful Western art and photos added class to this high-end hotel, which is a gem to be explored in Cheyenne. The Western-style hotel is rumored to be haunted by at least 3 different ghosts who were killed in a double murder-suicide. Their identities are said to be that of an unhappy bride, Rosie, the husband, and the husband's lover that he picked up in the bar. The legend states that the husband left the honeymoon suite to get a drink. When he didn't return after a length of time, Rosie went to look for her husband. She found him talking to a prostitute at the bar. When they got up to leave, she followed them. Rosie then trailed the two to the woman's room on the 4th floor. She entered the room to find them in bed together. Her new husband ignored the vows he had just made. Completely distraught, Rosie shot both of them before returning to her room and shooting herself. The female entity of this bride, Rosie, is seen wandering the 2nd floor wearing a blue gown, lost in her mourning, regrets, and disappointment. The entity of the unfaithful husband is well dressed, wearing a very early 1900s outfits. He's most often seen in formal attire, long tail black dress coat, black boots, and a white shirt with a decorative silver button. He favors the 4th floor and the basement, though he haunts the whole building. The entity of the prostitute is seen wearing a short red dress with white lace, favoring the 2nd floor and the lobby. She seems to still have issues with brides. One Halloween, the staff dressed 2 mannequins up as a bride and groom. One staffer saw this woman standing next to the mannequins. The bride mannequin then toppled over, and the woman disappeared right into thin air. The spirits will sometimes make themselves known in other ways, as the housekeeping staff have heard disembodied laughter and crying coming from the room that was the newlyweds couple's room. Doors and windows will also open and close at will. So, for a luxurious and perhaps spooky stay in Cheyenne, the historic Plains Hotel might be your best bet. Again, moving not too far, just around the corner from the historic Plains Hotel, on West Lincoln Way, is the historic Atlas Theater. A remnant of the bygone Gilded Age, the building houses the Atlas has a long and eclectic past. Within its walls once stood a tea shop and confectionery, an office building, a penny arcade, and the once famous Strand Hotel. It wasn't until 1907 that the building settled into its role as Wyoming's premier theater. The well-to-do of Cheyenne visited the Atlas for a night of vaudeville entertainment and risque burlesque. Drama and intrigue spanned far beyond the stage of the building, and for some cast members and guests, the curtain never closed on their show. Take, for example, the ghostly apparitions of star-crossed lovers doomed to replay their murder and despair for eternity. The story goes that the man became overcome by his role as a villain in the theater's current production, and enthralled by the power of his imagination, he became overcome with jealousy. He took, character, there's the
Character acting.
Method acting?
Yeah.
Method acting. He took it way too far. Not a little too far, he took it way too far. So yeah, he basically became the villain, and yeah.
He couldn't find his way out of his character.
No. So, as author Jill Pope tells it in Haunted Cheyenne, the man fell into a horrific rage, taking aim at his betrothed, the heroine of the play, and fired a shot at the actress. The woman died from a bullet to the heart. The man was later found dangling from a noose. These spirits appear at the places of their demise. The woman, a beautiful vision in white, prone to strolling the theater, the villain lurking in the shadows of the stage. Whispers of other spirits dwelling at the Atlas continue to this day. A 2012 paranormal investigation of the theater came away with recordings of horrific screams. A ghost named Mitchell responded to the group's inquiries, and a strange blue spirit orb appeared to them as well. On other occasions, old music will fill the halls with no apparent source, and objects will move from one room in the theater to another. Some have encountered an entity known as the Blue Girl, a benign presence that will fill the space with the sweet fragrance of flowers when she appears. Over the years, there have also been reports of a young boy playing with a red ball in the theater. Some think that this might be the spirit of Frankie or Gussie, one of 2 children that tragically died in a catastrophic fire that destroyed the building that stood on the site of the theater in the late 1800s. Today, the historic Atlas Theater is home to the Cheyenne Little Theater Players with feature performances throughout the year, carrying on alongside the spirits of yesteryear. Any questions?
Patrick's saying that you have to be really careful because sometimes you play the role and other times the role plays you.
Mm.
And it's actually gotten a few actors fired from movies, or almost fired, including one of the actors in The Breakfast Club. Found that out today.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Got too deep into the role?
Yeah, the one that Claire ends up with at the end of the movie, the asshole.
Uh-huh.
He apparently was method acting and stayed in character and would tease her, and actually said something about her dad, something that joked about her dad being blind. Her dad was blind. And the director knew this and knew her dad personally, and he was about ready to fire her. Everybody else went to bat for him. Yeah, it was a thing.
Learn something new today.
Yeah, this is what happens when I'm sick. I scroll on TikTok and find some very interesting videos.
You need to, if you're going to be doing that, you should find me some stuff to talk about on TikTok.
I could. I mean, I was also working on the script for Texas.
All right.
But that was on one of my breaks.
Okay.
Because apparently one of the anniversaries. Oh, no, I was talking about the director and how it was one of his first films. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I went down a movie rabbit hole today. Anyway.
All right. So moving on. So that was it for Cheyenne. Not to say that that is all the ghost stories that Cheyenne has.
There's a lot more there. So
there is more there. So we will probably, I don't know if we'll do a Wyoming part 2, but definitely not the last I think you've heard of Cheyenne on our shows. So the next stop, though, we are going to be moving to the city of Buffalo. Buffalo, Wyoming, not Buffalo, New York. This one is Buffalo is kind of up in the northeastern part of the state. So from Cheyenne, basically head due north, and you'll start getting up near the city of Buffalo. Now here at the heart of town stands the historic Occidental Hotel. We could have actually almost done this like a haunted hotels episode because
there's a lot of haunted hotels in Wyoming.
Yeah. So this one of a kind hotel, again built in 1880. They were building like crazy in the late 1800s.
Well, that was the West expansion.
Yeah. So it started as a saloon, but it soon became a grand hotel that welcomed notable people like Butch Cassidy and President Teddy Roosevelt. In 1918, 2 ranchers won the Occidental in a high-stakes poker game.
As you do.
Yeah. So, since neither rancher had any use for a hotel, let alone knowing the first thing about running one, they made plans to sell it. In the meantime, one of the rancher's wives, Margaret Smith, ran the hotel. It turned out that Margaret's management of the hotel was successful, and she would end up managing the hotel for another 58 years, until her death in 1976 at the age of 92. That's dedication. So,
hey, when you find something you're good at.
Yeah. Now, in 1997, Dawn Wexo and her husband would buy the hotel and set to restoring it. At that point, the hotel had been vacant for many years and was in a severe state of disrepair. It was a lot of work and careful balance in bringing the hotel back while maintaining its historic charm. There are many reminders of the wild days with bullet holes still visible in the walls and ceiling of the saloon. There are also old cowboy spur marks on the back stairs. On one room door, the indentations of a cowboy's 6-shooter are still present. As the restoration proceeded on the hotel, several of the workers began experiencing strange activity within the building. As an old structure, it's no wonder that the Occidental Hotel has become a popular destination for those on haunted tours through Wyoming. It is said that the daughter of an escort still haunts the halls, and guests often claim to see or hear her during their stay in this haunted hotel. Those who see her describe a young girl in white with long flowing dark hair. She will tap you on the shoulder while sitting at the bar or move furniture around to get your attention. Her name is believed to be Emily, a young girl that died at the hotel of cholera or typhoid in the early 1900s. A stuffed orange tabby is kept near the room where Emily died, as it is believed to keep her happy. Emily is said to have had an orange tabby cat while she was still alive. Children have left notes for Emily in that same room. Many of those notes appear to be talking directly to Emily about how much fun it was playing with her, something that the staff find to be a little disquieting. Housekeepers in the hotel have also recounted a story about seeing a girl hiding behind a door and trying to play hide and seek with them in separate incidents. Though playful in nature, it was enough for the staff to want to steer clear of that room when they are on their own. But the employees who work at the Occidental Hotel talk about a lot more ghostly encounters than just Emily. They will regularly report furniture moving on its own or catching shadowy figures moving about. Guests will have their own experiences, one of the most recent of which came from people staying in the Teddy Roosevelt suite. They went to the front desk clerk saying that they felt someone sliding into bed between them. No, thank you.
No.
Yeah. I don't mind friendly ghosts, but I kind of draw the line there. Anyways, in the saloon, whiskey bottles have popped off the shelf without explanation, and wine bottles have blown their corks. Wine glasses sometimes also break for no apparent reason. That said, who can blame the spirits if they want to treat themselves to the occasional nightcap? Attached to the south end of the hotel is the Busy Bee Cafe. Penny Ramirez is a waitress at the cafe, and she is described stepping through what felt like cobwebs at the hotel, except that there are no actual cobwebs there. She says it's usually on a Friday, and she thinks that it's all of the energy from a jam session because it's almost always on Fridays. Ramirez is referring to the Thursday night jam sessions that bring musicians from all corners. The sounds from the jam session can be clearly heard all over the Occidental Hotel. One time after a jam session, Ramirez came into the hotel lobby and she heard a key go ding on the piano that's sitting in front of the hotel desk. At first, she thought she was mistaken, probably someone's cell phone, until it happened again. Her curiosity piqued, Ramirez has participated in some investigations of the hotel. During a spirit box session with some friends, they asked, "Hey, who are you?" And they captured the name Richard, followed by a loud popping noise. Shortly thereafter, they decided that they had had enough of that for one evening, which is kind of a shame. I mean, you asked who it was, the guy answered you, and then you say, "Okay, bye."
No, you keep going.
No, but apparently that's what they did. C'est la vie. But that hasn't stopped ghostly occurrences. Since then, Ramirez heard someone call her name in the saloon, even though no one else was in the saloon at the time. In general, the staff considered the spirits of the hotel to be a second set of caretakers, protecting this historically charming location. As if to emphasize this, one night, a guest checked out early after reporting something, perhaps Emily, jumping on his bed in the middle of the night. Later, they found out that this particular gentleman who checked out early was actually a wanted felon. So, put the Occidental Hotel on your paranormal road trip bucket list, unless perhaps you have a warrant out for your arrest.
Emily will know it. Said Emily will know it.
Yes, Emily will call you out. Will not let you get a good night's sleep. Sir, you're restless. You're restless, buddy.
I know. I have the blankie.
Daddy, could you just shut up, Dad? You're making too much noise. You're vibrating with your talking.
Okay, baby, I'm sorry. We're going to quake. Mommy needs to move her leg. Oh, there we go.
All right. So we're eventually going to make it to like the Four Corners of Wyoming.
I did kind of go
Yeah.
all the way
So
around.
from the northeast corner, we're going to go to the northwest corner to the doorstep of Yellowstone National Park, where we have the town of Cody. Here we have another haunted hotel for you to consider adding to your haunted Wyoming bucket list. The Irma Hotel is one of the most recognizable buildings on Sheridan Avenue. It was built by Buffalo Bill and named for his daughter, Irma. Most tourists and many locals stop at the remarkable 115-year-old landmark to watch the nightly Wild Bunch gunfighters in the summer, enjoy the hotel's famous prime rib dinner buffet, admire the room-long cherry wood bar that was gifted to Buffalo Bill by England's Queen Victoria.
Totally down.
Yep, and of course they will go and visit the hotel's gift shop, as you do. The Irma Hotel carries a unique charm and an intriguing history. Beyond its Wild West reputation, this iconic establishment is renowned for its friendly ghosts that had become a part of the hotel's legend. They are said to manifest their presence in subtle yet comforting ways, adding intrigue to the hotel's already impressive collection of tales. So who are these friendly ghosts of Irma Hotel? The spirited apparition of a Cavalier soldier, believed to be a former Confederate soldier, continues to bring a mischievous mood to the Irma Hotel. Hotel staff and visitors who have spotted this ghost report that he only shows up from the bottom half of his body, but that his cavalry uniform and sword are enough to identify him. So, just a random pair of legs walking around the hotel, you know?
With a sword.
Yeah, with a sword.
That's slightly disturbing, by the way. Just saying.
Now, and then next there is room 35, better known as the Paul Stock Room. And it's spooky, and of course its spooky reputation. Guests who have spent the night here have reported faucets turning on and off, belongings mysteriously rearranging themselves during the night, and artwork found on the floor in places where it couldn't have simply fallen off the hooks. The dresser in room 35 is particularly noteworthy, as one of the drawers contains written messages of past guest interactions with the paranormal. Some claim to have heard disembodied voices. Others comment on how cold the space is, while other rooms are comfortable or even hot. Room 35 is described as being an icy tomb. There are reports of guests being awakened in the night by a cold hand but finding no one there. There are also reports of knocking on the walls and ghostly footsteps in the otherwise deserted hallway outside the room. Then there is Irma Cody Garlow herself, the daughter of Buffalo Bill. Irma passed away in the hotel at the age of 35, just days after her husband, the hotel manager, Fred Garlow, died of pneumonia at the hotel. Her spirit is said to wander the halls of the hotel bearing her name. The hostess enjoys visiting guests in her old room, which is room 16, while sitting in her favorite spot, a rocking chair. The hotel staff likes to believe that she watches over the property, maintaining a connection to her family's rich history in Cody, Wyoming. Perhaps the most amazing spirit to have been seen at the Irma Hotel is Buffalo Bill himself. Staff have reportedly seen the legendary founder of the town wandering the halls or enjoying a drink in the very bar that he started, ensuring that his legacy lives on. Some employees claim to have spotted Buffalo Bill wandering the halls of the Irma Hotel during the early morning hours, with one staff member reportedly hearing the unmistakable sound of spurs jingling in the bar despite no patrons being there. Other strange encounters have been reported throughout the hotel. The dining room staff have witnessed guests sitting and waiting to be served in the booths, only to find them vanished when they return to the table to serve that guest. In the hallway that runs by the Colonel Cody suite, footsteps have been heard going up and down the hallway, but when people wake up and check the hallway, no one is around. Knocking on the hallway wall is also loud enough to wake guests up occasionally. Overall, the staff of the Irma Hotel seems to be thankful for their ghostly companions. If nothing else, the spirited experiences seem to be good for business.
So, room 16.
Room 16? If for Irma herself.
Yes.
Or the room 35 seems to have its spirits going on there as well.
Yeah.
As well as just the hallways and the dining room and all kinds of spooky stuff there.
Road trip.
All right, so we said we're hitting 4 corners. Time to go and hit that 4th corner. We're heading to southwest Wyoming, where we find the community of Fort Bridger. This point on the map was at the confluence of the Oregon Trail, the California Trail, the Mormon Pioneer Trail, the Pony Express Trail, the Overland Trail, the Cherokee Trail, and the Lincoln Highway. It was a busy place.
Yeah, everybody went there.
Yeah, everybody went through there. If you were heading west, good chance you went through Fort Bridger. And so, of course, this made it a very good spot to establish a trading post. This scenic spot was described by an early traveler as an oasis located in a handsome and fertile valley. Because of its location near so many streams coming straight from the mountains and the nearby Green River, this valley was the perfect place to stop and rest. The earliest American explorers came across the place in 1822 in search of places to trap beavers for the fur trade. One of these young men later on was killed by a native tribe in a willow grove near the fork of the Green River. This fork was called Black's Fork after their slain friend. In 1842, a mountain man and trapper, Jim Bridger, remembered this location. He set up a fur trading post which flourished through a barter trade system with the natives. It officially opened in the summer of 1843 and was first made up of 2 or 3 adjoining log cabins with dirt roofs, a corral, and lodges inhabited by trappers and their families. As folks began traveling on the Oregon Trail during the gold rush, and Mormons traveling towards Salt Lake City, the trading post expanded what it offered in the way of supplies and fresh horses and cattle. Foot-worn animals were bought at a low price, allowed to become strong again, and sold at a higher price to replace other worn-out animals. By 1846, the number of livestock were numerous and business was booming. Despite some trade with friendly natives, others in this part of the country were hostile. The Sioux and the Cheyenne were fierce warriors who would come by and try to steal livestock and would attack travelers and native people alike. Both the trading post and Jim Bridger offered some protection. A man who knew how the natives perceived actions and people, Jim Bridger spoke several native languages and was a valued resource for travelers and the military alike in dealing with the natives, preventing unnecessary violence and bringing understanding to all involved. For example, he was hired to guide a surveying excursion led by Howard Stansbury through Bridger's Pass in 1850. Luckily, he was with them when the party ran into some hostile Ogallals. I'm sorry, I know I'm probably butchering that, but anyways, one of the local tribes. Jim Bridger was able to talk the natives out of their hostile mood through his outstanding use of sign language. Bridger was also an integral part of the Fort Laramie Treaty Council in 1851, acting as a savvy interpreter. The military commanders who occupied the fort relied on Jim Bridger for his knowledge and advice in opening efforts in battling the Sioux. I'm finding it. Got it. All right. The Mormons at first leased the fort grounds in the early 1850s for a brief period from Jim Bridger, who still ran the trading post. By the mid-1850s, Jim Bridger sold his land and operation to the Mormons, perhaps because he was given an offer he couldn't refuse. The Mormons briefly took possession of the fort, improving its security by building an 18-foot cobbled wall to enclose it. They also built sturdier and better-looking homes, bringing a more civilized look to Fort Bridger. During 1857, Mormons flirted briefly with the idea of leaving the Union, and what was called the Mormon Wars began for a short time. These wars consisted of malicious mischief and stealing supplies, not actual shooting and killing by these Mormon raiders. As they left the fort right before U.S. troops moved in 1857, the Mormons attempted to burn everything, even trying to set fire to the area grasses, which didn't work. Mayhem wasn't exactly their forte. American troops came to Fort Bridger and moved in, setting up a military fortification. Off and on from 1857 to 1890, federal troops occupied this fort, making improvements throughout the years when they were stationed here, turning it into a proper military fort, complete with improved fortification. Nice wood plank homes with stone and lime for fireplaces and chimneys. Sun-dried bricks were made by enlisted men to build soldiers' winter quarters. They were well armed with 30 pieces of artillery, 24 pieces of light artillery, 9 and 12 pounders, 6 pieces of heavy 24 and 32 pounders, all brass guns. So all kinds of firearms there. They were armed to the teeth, if you will. By 1890, the military moved out for good. In 1933, Fort Bridger and its grounds were dedicated as Wyoming Historical Landmark and Museum, which explains why this historic spot is in such great shape today. One can see most of the buildings which stood throughout Fort Bridger's long history, and sometimes they can encounter the historic spirits as well. Staff and visitors have had experiences with the entities who reside there, either seeing them, seeing their actions, or perhaps even communicating with them. All of the restored buildings on this historic site are popular with the entities of the people who once worked and lived here. Staff and visitors have seen shadowy forms and apparitions. Most of the buildings which were used by soldiers and officers alike have their own spectral inhabitants. In the stone building / former barracks and a milking barn, which is now home to the museum, an entity or two entertain themselves by playing with the copy machines and other electrical devices. There is also at least one spirit of the four-legged sort. A dog named Thornburg was reportedly earned a Medal of Honor after saving a child. When he died, he was buried at the fort. He now stands guard over the cemetery. Thornburg has been spotted running around on patrol, ever on duty. Also at the cemetery, there is an old male entity, a military man who is seen inspecting the graves, perhaps reminiscing about the past and paying homage to his fellow soldiers. In 1987, a caretaker of Fort Bridger Cemetery spotted a mysterious figure wandering between the graves. The ghost, wearing a white cowboy hat, was later recognized as the late husband of a local widow. For years, visitors reported seeing this lone figure walking through the cemetery in the early mornings and evenings. However, in 1988, his widow passed away, and the sightings stopped. Many believe the man was waiting for his wife to join him, a ghostly tale of love that transcended death.
I made the mad.
Sorry?
I'm so sorry that I made the mad. I don't know if you guys heard her, but she protested that greatly.
What can I say? Other questions?
Patrick said that it was amazing the Mormons could accomplish all that without coffee. I thoroughly agree with that.
Yeah, touche to that. All right. One final stop for this evening. So.
And Patrick, I promise you I'm not dying. It just sounds absolutely worse than it really is right now.
It's bad.
I owe Chris a lot of whiskey and chocolate.
I got some whiskey.
Don't make me laugh. It'll set me off again.
Where's the chocolate?
In the fridge.
Okay. Noted. All right. Back to business. We have one more stop for you this evening. I might have already said that. Sorry. Coming full circle. We're going to go both full circle, both literally and figuratively here, as we return to the southeast corner of the state, close to where we started there. And we got another haunted penitentiary. So we started with the penitentiary. We're ending with the penitentiary. And
a lot of hotels in the middle.
Yes. Now, this is the Wyoming Territorial Prison State Historic Site in Laramie, one of the oldest buildings in Wyoming. It was built in 1872 and is still intact with its original 2-foot thick walls of hand-quarried limestone with red sunstone trim. It served as a federal penitentiary from 1872 to 1890, and the building would then serve as a state prison until 1901. Then it became an agricultural experimentation station until the late 1970s. In 1991, the facility was restored restored to its historical state, where it is now listed on the National Register of Historic Sites. So basically, when this one closed in 1901, they moved everybody to the prison that we were talked about at the beginning of the show. So that's what's going on there. Now, as the Union Pacific train and ensuing settlers moved into the area, the clash between outlaws and lawmen resulted in the building of the U.S. Penitentiary. Here, the Auburn prison system was adopted, forcing prisoners to work and fund the prison, be silent at all times, wear black and white striped uniforms, replace their names with numbers, and move about the prison in lockstep. The most famous inmate to have served at the Wyoming Territorial Prison was Robert Leroy Parker, otherwise known as the infamous Butch Cassidy, inmate 187. Arrested for stealing horses in Lander, Wyoming, he served 18 months of his 2-year sentence at the penitentiary. Ironically, he received full pardon from the governor for good behavior in 1896, but then he went on to form the notorious Wild Bunch Gang and become the legendary Butch Cassidy. The Wyoming Territorial Prison would be the only prison to ever hold Butch Cassidy. While perhaps not as high profile as the Frontier Prison in Rawlins when it comes to hauntings, the Wyoming Territorial Prison still has its share of spirits and has hosted a number of paranormal investigation teams over the years. The most widely known, and some think maybe the only ghost, at the Frontier Prison in Rawlins and perhaps the only ghost at the Territorial Prison is Julius Greenwald, inmate 338. Greenwald was a 38-year-old cigar maker from Poland who found a demand for his product in the region. One day in 1897, while on a sales trip selling cigars, Greenwald visited his favorite brothel in Evanston and was shocked to find his wife, Jenny, working there. Enraged, he shot her on the spot. Hypocrite.
Yeah.
Convicted of second-degree murder on September 25th, 1897, he was sentenced to life doing hard labor. In prison, he persuaded the warden and guards to allow him to continue making cigars. He would carry on with his enterprise until 1901, when he died of a heart attack. Greenwald is one of only 2 prisoners to have died at the facility during its prison years, out of over 1,000 prisoners to pass through its gates. The other was a convict who came to the prison suffering from leprosy and died a short time later of pneumonia. Today, Julius's spirit remains accompanied by cigar smells when he's present. Some wonder why Greenwald might linger on here. Maybe he still has some unfinished business, or perhaps he's just trapped within the confines of his last residence, but many consider his presence to be undeniable. In 1989, he was one of a number of cells that were removed during a major renovation of the historic site. And one theory is that the noise and elimination of his cell riled up Greenwald's spirit. Renee Slider, curator at the historic site and a paranormal investigator herself, says people say there are footsteps, creaks, and whistles. You know, you hear someone whistling when there's no one there. She went on to say, we've experienced some interesting things. We've heard a female laugh, almost like singing, when there's nobody there. People who visit the popular tourist draw also have reported hearing noises coming from the prison's second floor, which housed the mess hall and areas where much of the at times harsh discipline was doled out. So just keep in mind that if you drop in on the Wyoming Territorial Prison, a long-dead cigar maker might be keeping an eye on you.
Dun, dun, dun.
The end. Thank you for watching.
Yes, thank you. We had quite a few people watching.
Yes, so appreciate y'all tuning in. We'll be getting this posted up on YouTube later this evening. You want to hand me the computer?
Mm-mm.
Sit. All right, that's saying bye-bye. So, anyways, yeah. I'm sorry. yeah, so anyways, that was our last story for this evening. Thank you for watching, and thank you for thank you for dealing with that for the last hour. She'll live. She'll be okay. I promise. Hopefully, in 2 weeks' time when we come back, she'll actually be well enough to tell a story or two herself. Speaking of which, when we do come back in 2 weeks' time, we have another state for you. We are going to be doing Haunted Texas. Now, if you've been listening to the show for a while, you'll know that we have talked about Texas on numerous occasions, mostly kind of piecemeal type stuff. It's just popped up here and there on many of our shows. But this show will be dedicated purely to Texas. So, got a whole new slate of stories to share with you there. And then near the end of the month, we are going to carry on with our tradition in March. We have another episode of Haunted Ireland. This is going to be part 4, maybe 5. I don't know. We've done quite a few Haunted Ireland shows now over the years. And before I do forget, I think, before our next show, speaking of Haunted Ireland, we are going to be having our last haunted dinner of the winter season. It's going to be just shy of 2 weeks from now. It's going to be Friday, March 7th, 7 o'clock over at Patrick Henry's Pub, and we are going to be doing stories for Haunted Ireland. So if you want to come on out and join us at the pub and get some spooky stories there, you can come on out and catch us there at Patrick Henry's. And again, of course, weather's pretty decent this week. You can come on out and join us for a tour. But let me see if there were any lingering questions here. And yeah. Thank you, everybody, for the well wishes. I will pass them along to her, but she might be a little while this time. So, anyways, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will bid you all good night. If you do have any other questions or anything like that, don't ever hesitate to drop us a note. We're always happy to hear from you, and hope to see you all again soon. Stay spooky, y'all. Have a good night.